Friday, September 16th, 2016. The OrlandoWeekly.com from Florida reports sinkhole at phosphorus plant dumps 215 million gallons of acidic water into Floridian aquifer.
This is a situation that started about 3 weeks ago here at the Mosaic New Wales location off County Road 640 here in Polk County. According to officials, someone noticed the water level dropping in one of the ponds used to store wastewater. A week later, officials confirmed a sinkhole opened beneath a gypsum stack. By that point, slightly radioactive water had already reached Florida's aquifer, more than 200 million gallons of it. More than 200 million gallons of it. More than 200 million gallons of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you now straight from the headquarters of the Top Cat Pride, is presented the unusual but factual and oftentimes controversial Wow News, featuring various international reports that will inform you and keep you in the know while you're on the go. And now, your Wild News reporter, paTe. Well now, here is a story that has been going very, very underreported nationally and also internationally. And I have seen very, very, very little information flowing on social media in reference to this story. However, I'd like to thank you for joining me. My name is oTis paTe here on the Wild News Report. A massive sinkhole underneath a gypsum stack at Central Florida phosphate fertilizer plant has dumped 215 million gallons, at least, of acidic water into the Floridian aquifer. WFLA, the station in Florida who is releasing this article, reports the sinkhole opened up about 3 weeks ago as of this article, which is from September 16th. Workers at the Mosaic New Wales plant in Polk County were monitoring water levels when they noticed a decline for one of the two cells in the plant's active stack on August 27th. The company says in a statement. A gypsum stack is a pile of phosphogypsum, a byproduct from the production of phosphate fertilizers. WFLA has reported the contaminated water is slightly radioactive, while the Ledger says the water is acidic. The Ledger is at theledger.com. The information for all articles will be provided in the description information area. So be sure to look at those links because they will vividly paint the whole picture of how gigantic this problem is, and it's going unreported, or I should say it's going underreported as a result of all of the occurrences we have in the United States with the police and citizens, as well as the stabbings and shootings and all of these other malicious things ongoing. This huge, very important, very toxic story is being pushed for whatever reason by the wayside.
Developing this morning, a massive sinkhole opens up under a Mosaic facility in Polk County.
It's caused millions of gallons of what officials are calling slightly radioactive water to leak into the Florida aquifer.
And Fox 13's Shayla Reeves is live for us at Mosaic's New Wales plant with the latest on the efforts to keep this contained. And Shayla, we've seen our share of sinkholes here in Florida, but the aerial views of this one are just striking. I'm not sure we've ever seen anything like this before.
Yeah, good morning to you. This is certainly a situation officials are monitoring closely, and we're told they are going to be routinely testing that groundwater and continuing to do so until they get the all clear from the Department of Environmental Protection. Those tests are looking for some specific things, contaminants such as sulfate, sodium, and also phosphoric acid. So far, officials say none of those contaminants have shown up in those wells used for monitoring the grounds. This is a situation that started about 3 weeks ago here at the Mosaic New Wales location off County Road 640 here in Polk County. According to officials, someone noticed the water level dropping in one of the ponds used to store wastewater. A week later, officials confirmed a sinkhole opened beneath a gypsum stack. By that point, slightly radioactive water had already reached Florida's aquifer, more than 200 million gallons of it.
We activated recovery wells. So we activated a well intended to capture the flow and pull it back into the plant. And we also have quite a number of monitoring wells that we're also increased the monitoring schedule, and we're to confirm that nothing has left the perimeter of the site.
Now we're told officials did again alert the Department of Environmental Protection and the EPA after discovering the problem. At this point, again, they're going to keep an eye on things. They're going to continue to monitor, and if they see anything or anything's unusual, of course, they will likely follow their procedures for reporting that information. In the meantime, though, Mosaic is a company that produces phosphate fertilizer and some ingredients used for animal feed. We're going to continue to follow throughout the morning, and of course, I'll be back with another live report.
Mosaic reported the water level declined to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. WFLA reports the sinkhole, which has a diameter of 45 feet, has dumped about 215 million gallons into the hole, which drains into the aquifer. Mosaic says they believe the sinkhole damaged the liner system at the base of the stack, draining the pond on top of the cell. When the water loss was detected, we began pumping water out of the west cell and into an alternative holding area on site to reduce the amount of drainage, the company says. At this time, we have begun the process of recovering the water by pumping through on-site production wells. The Ledger at theledger.com reported last year, by the way, in October 2015, that Mosaic had reached a $2 billion settlement with the federal EPA and Department of Justice regarding the way Mosaic managed 60 billion pounds of phosphogypsum, the hazardous waste it produces during the manufacturing process in Florida and also in Louisiana plants, according to the Ledger at theledger.com. This article goes on to say, the waste is placed in large piles hundreds of feet high, covering hundreds of acres, located near the fertilizer plants, contain toxic and radioactive elements and highly acidic water. EPA officials consider them some of the largest man-made waste piles in the country. If the waste is not handled properly, it can pollute surface and groundwater, which has occurred a number of times over the years. They include acid spills that affected the Alfea River in 2004 and 1997, and a 2004 acid spill that affected a tributary of the Peace River. In addition, a sinkhole opened beneath an unlined stack at Mosaic New Wales plant in 1994, threatening underground water quality. Mosaic representatives tell WFLA the company is monitoring the stack and nearby wells constantly, though they don't believe the water is making it to nearby wells. The plant is still operating, and company officials say they are developing a plan to address and rectify the cause of the water loss.
I'm Jennifer Lee. Thank you for joining us. A massive sinkhole on top of a Mosaic gypsum stack near Mulberry allowed millions of gallons of contaminated water to flow into the Floridan aquifer. Eagle 8 flew over the huge chasm in the earth and spotted a cascading waterfall. Look at this, into the middle of what looks like a moonscape. Peter Bernard is live for us right now in Polk County, and this thing is gigantic.
Isn't that amazing video? This is a monster sinkhole out here. This is at the plant here called the New Wales plant off County Road 640. We're just south of Mulberry. The sinkhole actually was discovered almost 3 weeks ago. Since then, about 215 million gallons of contaminated water have drained into the aquifer. About 40 feet across and who knows how deep, this sinkhole at the Mosaic plant is in a really bad spot. It sits right in the middle of a massive gypsum stack. That's the stuff that comes out of the plant after the company produces phosphate fertilizers and animal feed ingredients. Workers monitoring water levels discovered a drop.
When it was first noticed, we installed pumping systems to move water out of that compartment on the gypsum stack to recover the water.
The water is contaminated with phosphoric acid and is slightly radioactive, and not all of it is being caught by the pumps. You wouldn't want to drink this stuff, but so far, Mosaic engineers don't believe the water is making it to private wells. Near the gypsum stack, Mosaic has monitoring wells, and further out, there are more.
We're confident that the wells we started up are capturing that water and pulling it back.
Jellerson tells us the closest homeowners, who are all several miles away, can still use their water without worry. But if they have concerns, Mosaic will test it. So far, the company maintains all is okay.
We continue to monitor the stack 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to ensure that there's no safety or environmental concerns on top of the gypsum stack itself, as well as around the rest of the property.
It took a week for a Mosaic worker to figure out where all that water was going. The next step out here is to repair the hole in the gypsum stack and make sure, darn sure, that the water that is getting into the aquifer isn't getting into wells where people are likely to drink it. Jen?
A pretty scary situation. I know regulators typically get involved in a situation like this. Is the Florida Department of Environmental Protection looking into this at all at this point?
They're actually out here, and they've been here since day one. That was back on August 27th. So they're here, and also the feds are involved. The EPA is aware of what's going on and are monitoring as well.
Peter Bernard live in Polk County for us tonight. Thank you, Peter.
Now here's a website that I wanted to share with you from Morgan & Morgan from the United States at forthepeople.com. On their website here, they have the headline, "Massive sinkhole drains wastewater pond. Drinking water might be contaminated." The attorneys at Morgan & Morgan are currently investigating claims that harmful radioactive materials are potentially seeping into Florida's aquifer system as a result of a massive sinkhole opening up near the Mosaic fertilizer plant in Mulberry. And this is referring to Mulberry, Florida. This may pose a significant health risk, not just to residents of Polk County, but to the millions of Floridians who drink and bathe in the water from the aquifer. If you live near the Mosaic Company's fertilizer plant in Mulberry and have any questions regarding the safety of your drinking water and how radioactive contaminants could potentially impact your family, please contact us today. And the link to this law firm will be in the description information area. Many residents are concerned about the lack of transparency surrounding the sinkhole and the Mosaic Company. Here's what we do know about the situation. What is the Mosaic Company? Florida produces 90% of the nation's phosphate, which is used as a fertilizer within the agricultural industry. The Mosaic Company is one of the leading producers of concentrated phosphate in the world, and one of their fertilizer plants is located in Mulberry, Florida, just 45 minutes east of Tampa. The next area that I wanted to share with you is called Concerns about the Mosaic Company's Production. It says here, phosphogypsum is a radioactive waste product that is formed as a byproduct of the production of fertilizer. Because Mosaic, the company here that has caused this catastrophe, produces fertilizer at such a high volume, the radioactive byproduct is stored in mountainous piles known as phosphogypsum stacks. This practice is controversial, and many in the environmental community have concerns about the long-term impacts of phosphogypsum storage on water and soil. A massive sinkhole opened up beneath the Mosaic Company's fertilizer plant's phosphogypsum stacks in Mulberry, Florida. The sinkhole is 45 feet in diameter and deep enough to reach the Floridian aquifer. Potentially, radioactive water has seeped into the aquifer as a result. Conclusively here, the next section has to do with what is the Floridian aquifer. The Floridian aquifer is a series of porous underground rocks that hold and transport fresh and salt water. The aquifer is massive and extends throughout Florida and portions of adjacent states such as Georgia and Alabama. It supplies drinking water to millions of Florida residents and also creates natural springs used for recreational activities like snorkeling and swimming.
Used for monitoring the grounds. This is a situation that started about 3 weeks ago here at the Mosaic New Wales location off County Road 640 here in Polk County. According to officials, someone noticed the water level dropping in one of the ponds used to store wastewater. A week later, officials confirmed a sinkhole opened beneath a gypsum stack. By that point, slightly radioactive water had already reached Florida's aquifer, more than 200 million gallons of it.
As to take this to the next level, I wanted to show you proof from the ledger.com of the $2 billion loss settlement that Mosaic was penalized back in October 1st, 2015. Again, this article is from the ledger.com. Mosaic agrees to $2 billion settlement over waste handling. EPA officials considered it the agency's most significant enforcement action involving mining and mineral processing. The settlement includes an $8 million fine through a $5 million fine to the EPA, $1.4 million fine to Florida, and $1.55 million fine to Louisiana, which is also the largest environmental fine levied in any environmental case in Polk County. And Polk County is in Florida, where Mosaic is located, this particular Mosaic company. Mosaic and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the U.S. Department of Justice announced a $2 billion settlement Thursday, October 1st, over the fertilizer company's handling of hazardous waste production during the manufacturing process at plants in Florida and Louisiana, and its failure to provide adequate financial assurance the facilities would be closed properly. Also here on the Morgan & Stanley website at forthepeople.com, It says, when did the sinkhole first occur? Although many residents are only just learning about the sinkhole, it has been discovered that the sinkhole occurred on August 27th, and that's 2016, nearly a month before the news of the problems became public. It is also alleged that the government knew about the Mosaic sinkhole since that date, but failed to notify the public. And this is something that's always able to be found with situations like this. You'll find this same type of information exists as far as the Flint, Michigan catastrophe is concerned, as far as the Jackson, Mississippi water catastrophe is concerned, both of those pertaining to lead in the water, as well as higher than normal and higher than healthy copper levels. You'll also find this to be the story in many towns in New Jersey. Since the sinkhole opened up beneath the phosphogypsum stacks, 215 million gallons of potentially radioactive water have entered Florida's drinking water. This water may have also seeped into the private wells and soil of residents who own property nearby. Has something like this happened before? Yes. In 1994, a 150-foot deep sinkhole opened beneath a 80 million ton pile of radioactive waste in Mulberry, and this is in Florida. This incident occurred on the phosphate mine of IMC Agrico Company, which later became the Mosaic Company after a merger, and it resulted in the contamination of the Floridian aquifer system. So this was 22 years ago, approximately, as of this report. So Mosaic, or the company that they've merged with, has a long history of these type of catastrophic environmental dilemmas. What contaminants are potentially in the water? Though it has not yet been proven that there is radiation in the water, there are concerns about what would happen if there was. The waste byproduct phosphogypsum is radioactive due to the presence of naturally occurring uranium and radium in phosphate ore, which is used to create fertilizer. As a result, the radioactive contaminants that have potentially seeped into the drinking water of millions of Floridians are likely uranium and radium. However, I must mention that when you research this information, you'll find that the government there in Florida, they are not testing for uranium or radium, at least as of this report. Here during the last week of September 2016, and this is the reason why they are not finding any radioactive readouts, is because they are not testing for it. Okay, to be perfectly clear, Florida has quite a bit of problems with sinkholes in general. Not only from the Mosaic Company in Polk County, Florida, but Florida has a registry with over 20,000 different sinkholes in and around the state. But as a quick recap, what I wanted to do is mention some top points. Like number one, there are 6 Mosaic Company fertilizer companies plants in Florida, and there are 2 in Louisiana. And the company produces 60 billion pounds of hazardous waste per year. The recent catastrophe at their plant may pose a significant health risk to millions of Floridians and other states to the north of Florida. As well, that this problem with the Mosaic company in Florida, in Polk County, in Mulberry, began on August 27th, 2016. But the public was not informed until September 15, 2016. 3 weeks afterwards. And as of now, with all of the other things that are going on in the mainstream media, with the police and the public, with the stabbings and the shootings around the United States, this huge, very toxic story is escaping mainstream media news rotation. So I would like to ask you to help Top Cat's Pride to please spread this far and wide so we may save lives. The water has to be radioactive because there is uranium and radium in the water, in the storage pond where they kept this byproduct waste, and 215 million gallons of radioactive and very acidic water drained into the aquifer. The Floridian aquifer system is a thick sequence of tertiary, spelled Tertiary, carbonate rock, which spans an area of about 100,000 square miles in the southeastern United States. It underlies the entire state of Florida and parts of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and South Carolina. The Floridian aquifer system is one of the world's most productive aquifers, as it supplies drinking water for nearly 10 million people. Phosphogypsum is a radioactive waste product that is formed as a byproduct of the production of fertilizer. It contains uranium. As well, the Ledger.com reported last year, October 1st, 2015, the Mosaic company reached a $2 billion settlement with federal EPA and Department of Justice regarding the way Mosaic managed 60 billion pounds of phosphogypsum, the very hazardous waste it produces during the manufacturing process in Florida and in its Louisiana plants. And finally, the law firm Morgan & Morgan in the United States, and they have plenty of offices throughout the United States, but Morgan & Morgan is currently conducting an investigation into the whole situation surrounding this catastrophe of the Mosaic fertilizer company in Polk County, Florida. And I will leave the link to their company for all those that are interested in what the company is putting together and what they are currently doing as to bring out the truth of the actual damage and the propensity of the situation to the public. My name is oTis Q paTe, here on the Wild News Report. And as always, take care. This has been a Top Cat's Pride Wild News Edutainment Report.